Yes, sir. 10 seconds.
Hello and good evening. You are watching Policy Times and Policy Times web series on startup ecosystem of the world, and in partnership with P Combinator, Auto Nebula, Velison Nutraceuticals, and US Impact. I'm sorry to pronounce nutraceuticals if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
And the purpose of this, so a little brief about the Policy Times. Policy Times is a daily-based media promoting developmental journalism and policy advocacy in this country, and with just one objective that in our lifetime we want to see the country, India, the beautiful country, to be a developed and advanced country one. To make it possible, it is people like us who has to take an honest and initiative and action on the ground to achieve it. So today we have three important and figures and personality from the automobile sector. The purpose of today's gathering is to understand the automotive startup industry interface, the challenges and the opportunities. We'll talk about the automotive sector a little later, but before that, I just want to introduce the people, the experts who are here joining us. My partner, Dr. Prakash Sharma, who is the ambassador of global startup ecosystem, working on the ground across India to promote entrepreneurship and startup in the country at the grassroots level, starting from schools to colleges to universities. With us, we have Vimal Kumarji, who is a dreamer, innovator, a speaker, and founder and CEO of VI Innovations Private Limited. We have Pravesh Soniji, who is GM Business Development and Executive TA to MD Renault Nissan and Mitsubishi Alliances India. We have Mr. Deepak Verma, who is the quality head automotive sector with experiences in India and Japanese and US and European OEMs. So with these three experts, we'll try to understand the development of the automotive sector. Again, I want to share a couple of facts that Indian automotive sector, India is the fourth largest auto manufacturer of cars and seventh largest manufacturer of commercial vehicles as of 2019. Now, to talk about that, the Indian automotive industry is expected to touch 251 to 280 billion dollar by 2026. This was projections before COVID. After COVID, only God knows what is the situation, but we'll come back. We'll come to know shortly about this. Regarding the foreign direct investment, the automotive sector attracted around 24 to 25 billion dollar during April 2020 to March 2020, April 2000 to March 2020. Now, the sector is growing at a CAGR of 2.36%. It is one of the largest employment creators. The export level is also pretty high. It is one of the highest exporting sectors for the country. Around 4.77 million vehicles were exported. That was the figure. And the export growth is around 6.94%. Two-wheelers is also a big segment, which is like 73.9% of the vehicles exported. So out of the 477 million vehicles, the two-wheelers is a big, I think Africa and others are the biggest markets that we have. India has significant expertise in the automobile sector. What we need to know now, though we know a couple of brands, but startups in the automotive sector is a very important and dynamic phenomena because all the big brands that we often hear about, they are directly, indirectly dependent on the huge startup network or ecosystem that we have in this country. But what are the challenges? What are the opportunities post-COVID that we will try to understand from our experts who are with us? So I request all our experts to introduce themselves in 1 minute or two, and then also give the opening remarks on today's topic. So I'll start with Deepak ji. Deepak ji.
Okay. Thanks for giving the opportunity. My name Deepak Verma. I have more than 2 decades of experience in the automotive industry. I have been into manufacturing, quality, business development, and project management throughout. And during the course of my tenure or working in automotive industry, I have deputation in ASEAN countries where I spent more than 10 years over there at the leadership role. And as I have explained earlier in my introduction that I have worked in all the Japanese and European and particularly the US automotive sector. So I have a global vision in the automotive sector. Recently, just before the COVID, I have started one initiative, just a sort of a startup, very fundamental startup along with my job, wherein I will be able to service the automobile industries in terms of their OEM and the tier one and the tier two sectors through our services. So, as an opening remark, I can definitely say that automotive startup industry interfaces is really relevant in the time where we live, because India, as far as the automotive sector is concerned, is a very diverse and the complex in nature, wherein the domestic OEMs are competing with each other, whether it is a two-wheeler or passenger car or the commercial vehicle. At the same time, they are competing with the global companies who are already in India and about to come in India. So the challenges are many, and based on my experience, I can definitely say that because of these challenges, the good part is that we need certain sort of very high skill level of small groups in the form of startups, which can work cohesively with these OEMs giants to make their product more professional and more lucrative to the buyers. Basically, this is my opening remark.
Thank you. Pravesh ji, your introduction, brief introduction, and then
Yeah,
open.
sure. Of course, thanks, Akram, for having me here. So about me, I have 18 years of experience into automotive industry, spanning from chassis engineering to business planning and sales and marketing, and a brief time into product portfolio management and program management. So yes, I come from the commercial vehicle background, of course, recently into passenger cars, but this is how I have my career has progressed, and I'm here to contribute today. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Vimal ji, your introduction. If you can unmute yourself, yeah. Can you do it?
I'm Vimal, CEO of VI Innovations. It's an automotive tech startup based in Kerala, and our startup is incubated in one among India's premier hardware incubators. It's called Mako Village, and it's been supported by our government's startup nodal office, that's Kerala Startup Mission. And we have been incubated in India's exclusive connected transport accelerator, which is Autonebula. And Autonebula provides us connectivity between the automotive companies in India. And since our startup is in hardware sector in automotive, it's a very challenging, and it requires a lot of hurdles to be overcome. And hardware startups are always hard, and went to big companies, and they are interested on only if our product is like a hit in the market. So they want us to be successful first, then they will think about accepting the devices to their companies in terms of collaboration. And in terms of investments, most of the VCs, they seek the market traction. So this is a tough time for startups which need support to reach the market. So that is the only thing I want to emphasize here, that after getting successful, you will get hundreds of VCs, but we really need support in getting to the market and to make our product hit in the market. So that's where we need support. We need support to get traction. And after getting traction, there will be hundreds of VCs who can support us. And there are a lot of big OEMs from India and abroad that are interested in our product. Even the startup incubators from Europe has told us or they've agreed to do a validation of prototype and do a market test in their nation, that's the Netherlands. And that's quite impressive that they are accepting more startup ideas now. So I don't think like startups startups should not should not stress too much in this stage, but focus on launching to the market or give a little bit traction. And traction only can attract VCs or other companies. So that's the real situation that I face now.
Thank you. I think wonderful to have the initial perspective from our three experts on this. I want to request Dr. Sharma to also outline or lay down the foundation of today's discussion in some bullet points so that we can take it further.
Yeah.
And what is
So
the works you are doing?
yeah, thanks Akram and the team over here to be part of this particular session. As you know, Passion Framework is focused on entrepreneurship, research, and employment. These are the three focus areas, and Autonebla is a very ambitious brain child of Sanjay Puri, who is based out in Washington. And he has founded this particular company over here in India. It operates from Washington and India, and we are actually focusing over here on a very focused theme, which is the startups. So when we look into the automotive startups, we have multiple challenges because it's a hardware initiative. It is a combination of hardware and software. And what happens if you have observed is most of the programs in the past, they used to be software based B2C kind of business to consumer kind of project. But in automotive sector, we have not only the business to consumer, consumer to consumer, but we also have business to business concept. And any innovation needs a prototype, and after prototype, it needs commercialization. And that is where it was important for us to understand 3 points. One is from the startup perspective, second is from funding perspective, and third is from the industry interface perspective, what kind of impediments and challenges exist, and will there be any solution, and what would be the government interventions also. And as policy times rightfully wants to understand what kind of policy recommendations are needed a way forward. So let us get the viewpoint from the startup also and the industry experts. Thanks.
Thank you. So I want to come to the straight discussion now with one simple point that I want to start from the discussion from there, and I will try to take your view on this. So we are in between a tremendous, and I think the historical COVID crisis. What is the situation now during COVID of the large brands and also of the startups? How are startups surviving, coping up? What are the changes that you are looking forward to see in this sector? Okay, let that be the first question, and then we'll go to the second one. So starting from anyone who can start, so like to say.
Okay, I can add on to start with. If we talk specifically about the COVID and its probable impact on the startups which are into the automotive industry, I would say yes, it has impacted in a big way. But just to add on that, the startups in the automotive industry got impacted much before the COVID itself. As we know, the economic slowdown has started mid of last year. So anyway, all sectors of automobile got impacted. And once the OEMs got impacted, anything associated with the OEMs, whether it is a tier 1, tier 2 or startups also, they also got affected in a big way. So, and situation has further aggravated when COVID has started sometime end of February and start of March. So I would say this thing has really impacted because see the challenge anyway, the challenges, whether it is for the automotive sector or any other sector for the startup is that it has to have a very effective and the long-term investor. That's a lifeline for any startup in India or across. So, and the nature of the investment or the investor is such that he has to pump in the money or the funds at different times, because the nature of a startup is that as initially it may be little less requirement of the fund, but as it grows and the activities grows, the funding requires in the same proportion. But the startups who are in the mid level or in the advanced level, I know some of them which got really affected because OEMs or investors has stopped funding them because the future was very uncertain. They were not knowing how long this corona will be there, when the vaccine will come and all those things. So I would say as a part of my data, I was just looking into a data. 85% of the very active startups in India got severely affected because of the lack of funding, which has been stopped due to these things. Primarily two factors. One is the economic slowdown, and second, it was aggravated due to the corona issue also.
Thank you. Praveshji, your views?
So, okay, from the perspective of industry, of course, Deepak has stressed on the condition of the startups, but industry situation is also no different because, of course, while the funding
Yeah.
is not coming for startups, of course, because OEMs themselves are struggling from this kind of a situation where revenues have dwindled, very difficult situation. There are no sales scenario. Of course, we have seen the impact of lockdown. And of course, when before lockdown, as Deepak has also said, we had a lot of policy challenges, demonetization and migration to BS6 and a lot of high speed migration to the legislations which are there in Europe. So we are trying to bring into India, and of course, good initiative in terms of safety in all aspects. But this has already troubled the industry, and now when the COVID came, of course, it has put challenges in terms of revenue. So now there is enormous restructuring in the companies happening. They are realigning the strategy. They are looking at how can they reduce the fixed cost, how can they reduce the operational cost, and there are various innovative ways are being looked at. Like nowadays, work from home. There used to be a lot of objection in terms of a way of working with work from home, but it has become way of life now,
Yeah.
and people are. And I think a lot of companies, almost 30 to 40% people, at least in the industries, non-IT side, because IT at least 90% people can work, but non-IT in automotive also almost 30 to 40% they are looking at working from home. So there are a lot of changes which are happening, and of course, enormous focus on the cost. So yes, thereby of course startups will have to bear with this situation because first OEMs to stand on themselves, regain that kind of energy, re-energize, and then of course they can fuel in startups in coming days.
Excellent. Mr. Vimal, your view on this?
Yeah, I have a solution for OEMs. Startups have ready-made solutions that you spend crores in R&Ds. We have made in lakhs. So
I thought
why
it
are
was
you
solution for
struggling?
fixed cost.
Yeah,
I thought
yeah,
it
the
was solution for some
innovation.
cost.
I didn't get that. I didn't get that. Could you
Fixed
come again,
cost.
please?
So, is there
When
any
you said,
solution to the fixed costs that is there that they have to incur?
just a
Yeah,
joking, yeah.
yeah, we have already incurred, and we are waiting for piloting with OEMs, and this is the time that OEMs and startups can collaborate to overcome the situations like this. I believe so.
Yeah,
Exactly.
of course.
I want to pose a counter question on this. How long do you see this problem is going to continue? Like, when do you see things are going to get normal? And the second thing is, what choice do the startups have in front of them right now at this situation? And what do you expect from
Um,
governments and all?
Even the world don't know when this will end because the Oxford vaccine has been withdrawn recently. But I believe the automotive sector, especially the cars, has a positive side because most of the people will avoid public transport. At least 40% of people, at least they might think of buying a pre-owned car, and they will travel in privacy, or they might avoid public transport system like in rush. So there's a potential for car industry, but at the same time, they have a challenge like adding more features and all those kinds. I think by next year, things will pick it up and will go slowly, but steadily it might go.
Thank you. Praveshji and Deepakji, my question was not with regards to Corona, but with regards to the revival of the sector. Like, how soon do you see that this sector can revive back? Not only the big players, but especially the startups. And then, what choices do they have in front of this?
Hey, as far as revival is concerned, I'm not a big expert to even assess the situation because, of course, everybody is scratching head at present time to look at, okay, when can we recover? But of course, we are optimistic about, we keep hearing the news. It's all around while we are talking about vaccine for coming in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, and it is still in the waiting. So we really don't know till it really comes, right? and now we have to take this as a way of life probably, and we have to live with it. But okay, if we even try to do some guesstimate based on whatever we hear all around, I see at least vaccine situation, if we are lucky, as we hear, though we really don't know the fact, because as you see there are counter newses all around. So at least I think 6 to 8 months, if we are really lucky, we should have something on that situation. But problem is, even if we have vaccine and if we are trying to come back on the track, uh, to recover to the original kind of a situation pre-COVID, it is going to at least take 18 months, in my view, from there on, right? Because until unless there are severe measures by company to look at cost cutting, fixed cost reduction, newer ways of doing, and if some innovative ideas are implemented, I think industry and OEMs can come on their feet back, and they can control the situation. So maybe let's see 18 months to 24 months to that kind of a scenario, gaining back that kind of a situation. Now, looking at how does it impact startups, because of course, uh, the financial situation, I think in 1 year, if they are able to manage costs, thereafter, of course, companies can never stop looking at future, and they can never stop looking at adjacencies in terms of strategic matters. It is not dependent too much on the money, because companies have to survive and they have to plan for longer term. So they can always cannot focus on the cost, right? So I'm sure startups, of course, they will be really choosy about the startups, but yes, they will for sure look at bright ideas and bright business opportunities coming out of those. So I think they'll be selective, is what I would say for sure. So
Thank you.
people
Deepakji,
getting into startups, they should look into very carefully what they are getting into.
Deepakji, your view on?
Yes, I see, as per my estimation and the industry, and I see that by the end of this year, some sort of a vaccine will be available commercially in the market, and all will depend upon that. But the good part is that now people has learned, the population has learned to live with the corona. They are taking their own self initiatives for the safety measurement, social distancing, and all. And as we have seen that the industries in general has started opening up. Yes, they are facing challenges in terms of availability of the skilled manpower, because as we know, when the corona was there in the full swing, a lot of skilled laborers have, there was a great exodus from various states to UP and Bihar, where this population belong to. And now, as I'm associated with a lot of tier one and tier two also, I personally feel that yes, they are, though they have started opening up, they have started a low volume production also as for the lean manufacturing. But in absence of skilled laborers, they are facing a real threat actually. They have deployed all types of measurements like sanitization before entry and some safety bags and social distancing. But thing is that once the labors are not available of that intensity, production cannot be pushed out to be. This is one thing. And second thing is that good part for the automobile industry, particularly the two-wheeler segment, is that the people who were basically trying to purchase two-wheelers, now they are taking a conscious decision to really purchase a two-wheeler, and two-wheeler owners who were very comfortable and they were planning to graduate to some low scale or low level of passenger car, they are now taking a very conscious decision to go to that segment just to maintain a personal hygiene and the safety. Public transportation, as we know, is not a solution under the current condition, and additionally there is no availability of most of these commercial vehicles as well. So only option available with the people is that whosoever can purchase two-wheeler, whosoever can purchase a four-wheeler, are they trying their best. And as a result, we have seen in the last month, July and August month trend of sales, if we see for the two-wheeler, it is very healthy. So it is clearly signifying that people are very self-conscious and they are approaching in that way. Same, I would say, in the passenger car segment also, a mid-level and the low-level cars are really selling, and this is a good sign, basically. So, and once the vaccine will be available towards the end of this year, I think people will be more confident to move around. So it will further open up the market.
Okay, thank you. I think there are three more issues that I want to raise, and then I want to have your views on that. Then we will go into the policy recommendation perspective. Number one is skill set, because it's a skill oriented sector, so we need skills. Number two is it's a capital intensive sector, so we need massive amount of money not only to survive here but also for further production, reproduction, and growth and all. And the third, most important part is the electric vehicle concept that the ministry has come up now by, I think, 2030 or 32, that the government expects all vehicles to be electrified or electric vehicles. In this three format, are the OEMs or the startups ready to survive, to cope up these changes, and what is it? So first, let's talk about the FDI or money. We need capital because this is capital incentive industry. FDI, India used to attract decent, healthy FDI from abroad, also decent investment from India. Post-COVID scenario, do you think that startups can attract investments from abroad as well as in India, and how should do they plan? So maybe
you're speaking about automotive startups specifically in
I'm
that
talking
context?
about specific to automotive sector.
Automotive.
Yeah, because getting FDI in the context of automotive startups, I think, is too far to think for now, because of course they can get invested and then venture capitalists can invest in terms of FII or something. But startup in terms of scale and specifically looking at automotive, I feel it's quite challenging in near term, of course, because especially the situation of funds and situation of global economy itself. It will be very selective, as I said in the beginning. So I'm not able to gauge that to what extent it would be really visible in near term is what my point of view. Maybe Dr. Prakash can throw some more light because he's closer to that kind of a situation.
Right. Vimal, your view on? Yeah. Mr. Vimal,
companies are interested, but we need to give them a robust solution, and that's it. So we need piloting opportunities from OEMs, and that's the only solution that I feel startups can get to the market.
Okay. Also give me solutions. Yes, please.
Sorry to interrupt. We need to get piloting opportunities from OEMs, and like OEMs can get ready-made solution from startups, and startups can get opportunity to pilot with OEMs, and that's how they can enter the market. So that kind of synergistic partnership and collaboration can help both of them. I believe so.
Okay. So along with your observation, also give some solutions how to attract money either from abroad or from India. So Deepak ji.
There are a lot of incubators outside. There are a lot of incubators, international incubators, who are ready to intake startups even from India, and they are in search of innovations right now. So there's a lot of opportunities for startups. The thing is, like, we need to focus on the right industry there.
Deepak ji, your view?
Yes, I would add here that as you mentioned about the e-mobility and its prospect in the coming time, but just before that, I will add on that this automotive sector is facing for the production of BS6 vehicles as per the government regulation. So as you know, the switching from BS4 to BS6 calls for a huge amount of investment, which all the sectors, including two-wheeler, passenger car, and the commercial vehicle, has already done it. And as per the discussion in SIAM, which is the association of all these agencies, since OEMs has invested crores and crores of amount, millions of dollars in this improvement from BS4 to BS6, so definitely until and unless there will be a good return of that investment, I don't think OEMs will be interested in switching over to the e-mobility in a big way. So that I feel as a big limitation in moving forward in the direction of e-mobility. That is number one. And there are basically 4 platforms in the e-mobility sector where the startups can really initiate and flourish. One of the platform is basically charging of the batteries and swapping of the batteries. That is one platform, as because as all of us know that lot of startups in India and abroad, they are dedicatedly working on this area, because this will be a really limiting factor if a e-mobility or a e-car launched on the road, sold on the road, and there is no charging facility because of the limited life of the battery. So there is hundreds and thousands of startups working in this direction, and there is a big scope whenever the question of commercial sale of e-mobility will come. Second is the telematics for the fleet management. Telematics is basically, as you know, is a part of the IT which transfers huge amount of data from one location to the another without a type of a hardware. So telematics scopes for the startup is a huge one, which people are working. And over and above that, there is advanced safety related features where crash testing and all those things, how to basically invent the alternate material which qualifies for the crash test, but at the same time the weight per vehicle comes greatly down. So these are the areas where I feel that e-mobility is already flourishing just before the corona has started. But as this BS6 has aggravated the situation, it will come for some time. And I think that e-mobility will get started some sort of a lifeline towards the end of next year. This is what I feel.
So just I will add this, Akram. You had a point specifically, if not on FDI part, but from the point of view of investments coming into the startup. And when you talk about EV ecosystem specifically, we can always divide this EV kind of a rush which is going on in the country. One side is all mobility startups, which is the guys who are making mobility products, which are the either two-wheelers or three-wheelers, or maybe to some extent a car. Of course, nobody has come up that great in India, but of course 2 and 3-wheelers. And there are other guys in the startup who are into adjacencies of these EVs, either charging infrastructure or the upward integration, battery, and all kinds of suppliers, which supplies goes into the vehicle. So we have to really divide this into that. So if you are talking about charging infrastructure, batteries, and the supply chain for the EVs, for sure we can expect investments. But if you look into the end vehicle, which is the mobility products, there are enormous startups which have come up. Now, point is, who will get a chance of such an investment? So that's where people have to stand out, startups have to stand out, what value they bring. There are very few startups in this mobility chain who make mobility products, but there is no real differentiation coming out. So I think if they want to invite a kind of an investment, I think they have to bring up a unique proposition. Either you club it with the digitization, AI, ML, or look at some kind of a very unique solution which can make the product easy for servicing. Or there are a lot of solutions which can increase the longevity of the vehicle apart from the EV aggregates. Because now we are making a solution for EV which is just a hybrid kind of a EV powertrain fitment into conventional vehicle. There is no specific EV architecture being worked out, except few companies who have done from scratch, right? So people have to look at, they make a vehicle which is real EV, and they can make a proposition which is unique. I think that would be the way to go and attract investment. So is what my view.
So, Vimal, your view on the EV system that we are planning. Are Indian startups ready for the EV?
There are a lot of startups already playing in the EV sector. For example, the battery swapping, and even our startup is ready for EV, but still we haven't got any opportunity to pilot with any EV supporting OEMs, because our product, like, it's more into transformation from analog to digital. So I'm looking forward to that, and companies have to companies have to transform quickly. Like in companies like in abroad, our companies in India should also transform quickly. See the new cars coming in India, the MG Hector, Kia Seltos, and these kind of cars have come up with technology that and the other companies, Indian companies, are still struggling with the old features. I don't know when they will transform quickly.
Thank you. I think Dr. Sharma, if you're there,
Yeah.
so because you are working on this startup ecosystem,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
For the investment, how do you see
correct.
that we can attract more?
See, in this last few years, what we have observed is that OEMs actually started understanding the merit of startups, and they want to closely work with startups through their dedicated accelerator programs. So we have Maruti, in fact, which we were helping and trying to identify some startups for them. Then right now, a couple of more manufacturing companies have come out and they have said that, okay, is it possible for us to interface with startups? Now, what is the mode of investment? That is something which would be of interest. So it is not like a huge fund which comes in. Okay, so it is something where initially the OEMs want to do a proof of concept, so they are willing to invest and give an opportunity to the particular startup for doing a proof of concepts, but it comes with an equity model. So some of the manufacturing companies would also take a small equity in that particular startup in lieu of the proof of concepts given. Now, having said that, one of my experiences with
Yes, sir.
the automotive startup and the industry interface was that most of the industry cannot share their proprietary information to any startup, okay, because it is like sharing one recipe of success. So this is where many of the industry would want the startups to actually work exclusively with them. So there are chances that many of the industry may want to go by the acquisition route for the startups, or as long as it is in the mobility space, there is no competition. Okay, so that is one of the reason Ola and Uber became successful. Ola and Uber were using any type of vehicle. So it is something where if suppose sumo has to be promoted, or anything like they have some vehicle, so it becomes very easy. Okay, you collaborate with a mobility startup and you just keep promoting them. So they don't mind even giving their spare vehicles, no, for experimenting with mobility. So you would have seen huge amount of second and third round of investments which OEM started putting on these startups.
Thank you.
Now, yeah. So now coming to from the foreign countries viewpoint of view, they have very clearly indicated there are a few couple of fund companies. They said that in India they would like to invest in 2000 to 2023. Okay, so still we are 2 year off. So that is what I wanted to say.
I see. Final question, and this is a little different. This is the era of disruption. Every sector, every area we call and talk about, there will be disruption. Automotive sector will also experience disruption from the EV perspective, from the Corona perspective, and also from the automation perspective. I think automation will be another big disruption that the startups in the automotive sector will have to go through and prepare themselves. In this context, skills versus automation, how will and where will startups bind towards? Like, how will you cope up with the competition between skills and automation? And also, are you ready for disruption? Because these are heavy capital incentive sector, automotive sector is. And startups and such heavy automotive sector, looks a little odd combination. I'm a little surprised. I don't know much inside about this sector, but you can give a lot of lights on this. Do you think that Indian automotive startups are ready for disruption? This kind of competition between skill and automation, how are we surviving? So, yeah,
Okay.
anyone?
So, yeah, I can put forward my views on this. Yeah, that's a much debatable point, particularly in OEM and tier one, that skill versus your automation. While automation so far has been a baby of European and the US companies, and skill was the real asset for the Indian companies or Asian countries, I would say. So there is a lot of conflict because the geographical conditions and the nature of industries are like that. In India, I would say that skill is a major thing which is really important for the running of the business as well as development of the business. And there are various core areas where people are working since years, since decades, and they have developed a skill for that thing. Even in their wildest dream also, they can, by hearing what is the symptom of the problem, they can directly suggest what is the problem and what is the solution for that. And this is further supported because the labor cost in India is relatively affordable and cheap as compared to European and the US market. In European, because we are exporting to a huge amount to Europe and America also, they cannot afford to have a line, a assembly line of maybe 4 stations or 5 stations with 10 operators. Cannot afford, because hourly cost or the daily cost or the wages are like that, it will be huge expensive along with the other overheads of those operators. So they have a willingness and a dedication to go for the automation, which these countries are doing it for years. And now the situation has come that, yes, and there are advantages and disadvantages to both the mode of working. Automation, while it is highly successful in Europe, may not be that successful in India, because in order to do it, firstly, you need a huge amount of investment, which maybe a tier 2 company may not be interested at this stage because their volume may be very limited, or any tier 2 company may be supplying to automotive and non-automotive sector also. So they might not be interested to go for the automation. That is point number one. Rather, they would advocate that yes, my this skill set of people are there and they will be working wholeheartedly for that, and I can guarantee that the supply will be defect free. That is, he will be willing to confirm. But the thing is that government directly or indirectly is also advocating that industry 4.0 has to be implemented in some form or the other in the Indian industries as well. So here I would say OEMs are doing to a great extent, but tier 1, tier 2 right now are not in support of this, and they will still take around 2 to 3 years from now in order to really start working sincerely in that direction.
Thank you. Praveshji?
So I have, so I was just about to speak on that. For me, it is neither, it's not a choice between skilled labor-based working versus automations, right? It has to go all together. So if we have to work for Industry 4.0 or the greater level of automation, it is going to bring different kind of value, right? And of course, it is not going to take the job or a job of somebody else, right? It is always, there are a lot of areas where people have to be reskilled and they can be deployed into different areas, because if economy has to grow and if company has to grow, they have to look at expansion, different avenues, different markets, different operations, right? So there are always opportunity. People cannot be contented with saying, okay, I have a skill and for 40 years I'm doing this and I'm willing to continue, and if you bring automation, this is going to take my job. One, and if so, when you bring all these digital aspects, because Industry 4.0 and all automation is a very small way of saying it probably, but Industry 4.0 is much bigger than that. You deploy it in multiple aspects in terms of machine learning, AI, and kind of automation, software automation, machine automations, right? So I think that is going to create different kind of opportunity. And of course, when you talk about human being, it's all about motivation. And I think nothing gives motivation to people than learning newer things. So if such things happen, it is opportunity for them to learn something new. And I think we should take it very positively. And I think these things are here to coexist. And of course, now it is at the OEM levels, at a bigger industry level, coming to MSME and the next level of adoption. Since it is a capital intensive, it is going to take a lot of time. So I think it is too far for MSME level. Let big corporates and big banners get into this, and then we can talk about next levels, is what I would say.
So,
I would just add on. With your permission, Akram.
yes.
It is basically, if we go back to 1980s, there have been a talk related to ISO 9001 certification, ISO 9001, ISO 9002 and 3 and 4. So that time also, if you remember, OEMs were in the forefront to establish and adopt these systems, wherein in tier 2 and tier 3 companies, they were not much interested. Though the condition is similar to that of 1980s. That time it was related to the quality management system implementation, and now it is related to Industry 4.0 conditions. But gradually, as OEMs has adopted and implemented successfully this ISO 9000 series, gradually it has been percolated to tier 1 and tier 2, and it is only a matter of time before they will wholeheartedly adopt it.
Thank you. I think we are in the final part of the discussion. I have only one more question on this, and then we'll have your final concluding remarks along with the answer of the question. That is, policy making and policy implementation for any sector is the nucleus of the sector's growth and development. No sector can survive and grow without, either it should be completely without any regulation, like it should be completely laissez-faire, free of everything, or there should be extremely careful and motivational as well as positive policy making and implementation. For the startups perspective, or from the startups perspective, what, given the situation that we have in India, across the world also, for survival and also for growth, as well as to be, we are the fourth largest automotive sector in the world, now also targeting to be the number one or number two.
Yeah.
What kind of policy perspectives? Because every disruption brings equal amount of opportunity. It all depends on the takers, that how taker take it and implement or move forward. For example, for post COVID-19, whether we agree or not, China is the superpower of the world with the largest economy, largest base. This America is on the knees. It's completely down, gone. So the American supremacy is out of the question now. Other countries are on the foothill. They'll be thinking here and there. New era that is going to emerge in the geopolitics of the world. Given the automotive sector, can India aspire to be number one, number two in this sector? What kind of policy support or policy intervention do you expect and do you think that we can have so that we become leader from here post disruption? Maybe Vimal can begin.
Was that to me?
Yeah, this is question for all with the concluding remarks.
Yes, if we focus on innovation and not just replicating from other place and just scaling it up in India, rather we should innovate in India. I think that's the only solution that I can put forward to.
Excellent.
Your
So
question.
a single word answer, innovation. I think that's wonderful. And there is no debate on that. Now the debate is how do we become the most innovative country in the automotive sector? I think that we will have to have another session. Yeah, maybe you can add a couple of points.
We are here, yeah.
Okay. So Praveshji,
Yeah,
policy
so,
recommendation.
it's a very difficult question, Akram. So you are making us think hard. But
It is towards the end.
So see, the question is whether we will be there is a big question, because if you talk about China, and always we talk in parallel with China. China, truly speaking, if you look at in all terms of all the infrastructure, in terms of all the development what they have done, at least let me tell you, somebody likes or not, they are 20 years ahead of us. Okay, if you anytime visit them, you will see in every step you walk around and see what all is there, either variety in terms of technology, in terms of environment. You will feel every inch, you will feel that they are much ahead. Okay, so now we are talking about can we reach there. And now before I come to automotive, we have to talk at large on the economy front. I think there is a lot to cover. Only thing is we can pick up a direction. And I think in the current scenario and the environment, what kind of policies are being brought, and what kind of messaging is being conveyed into the crowd by the government in the leadership of India, I think it is in the right direction. And I think what can keep us surviving or keep up going on to that part, as rightly Vimal said, is the innovation, what new things we can bring. And now when when the government has launched on this NEP policy and various entrepreneur policies, I think these are the opportunity where until unless industry, academia, and startups come together and look into synergy, and such kind of a policy structure should be there so that they work in collaboration. I think that is the biggest thing which should be propagated, and there should be policy making around that. And I think what we are talking about, this government is talking about 5 trillion economy dream. I think it is not possible without it. And I think this MSME, large enterprises, as well as startups have to come together and work and look at innovation. I think that is the only possibility we can create value. So this is what I'm feeling. Yeah.
Thank you. Excellent.
So I will not say where we'll reach, when we'll reach. We are on the path. We can catch. We can race. So let's get into the race with positive attitude.
Absolutely. Deepakji, final comment.
See, as per me, there are two parameters which are hugely important for a success of a startup, particularly in the automotive sector. One is the credibility of the startup, and another one is the source of funding. So if I talk about the credibility, because see, startup has been initiated by a very skilled people, three or four in nature, who have a very skilled, they have gained over their business, and they have clubbed together to make it a startup. So nobody in the market knows them. Even if they come out with a lot of good products to offer to them, nobody knows them, and it is all marketing that works in India and outside. So if they gets associated with any branded names, then their success is guaranteed. So credibility, I feel that is very important. And for that purpose, the policy can be amended to include this point that, yeah, there are some big names in the industry. So there should be some sort of a clause that any big name of such much of a turnover, they can get associated with some fixed number of startups based on their turnover and profitability. So this, I feel that can be a real-time policy change which will help us them to flourish. And second is the funding, because funding is the lifeline of any startup. So right now, see, starting of the startups is okay, they somehow get, but because of some delay or because of some resolutions during the development, sometimes the period becomes extended, and that time the funder, the founding, the person who is basically founding, he backs out because he fear that he lost his confidence that whether something will really come out or not. So he fear that his return may not come. So that's why he stopped the funding. But see, if we have a consistent trust and confidence on those guys who are very skilled, then later or sooner this will be returned. So if something can be worked out in terms of policy revision with related to this, it will be a great help for the startups to flourish.
Thank you. Dr. Sharma, your closing remarks.
So
See,
before that, can I take a point
Praveshji.
onto this? Because very key thoughts came into my mind. Sorry, Dr. Sharma and Akram. But
Yeah.
if you specifically look at if you want to bring collaboration of startups, MSMEs, and the corporates, probably the kind of funding, because I'm hearing a lot about funding here. So I think there is a lot of CSR funds with company, and there is no dearth of fund, right? And those funds are around 2% of the profits of the company. And how these are channelized to NGOs, right? So I don't know why not we channelize, corporates channelize, or government should ensure that these are channelized through some universities and academic, right? You should actually connect industry, academia, and the startups and channelize these funds. Probably this could be one probability. I think you can bring expertise, because NGO has no value add either to startup in terms of what kind of suggestions they can give and what kind of a directions and mentorship they can do. So this is one thought I have, and probably something like a carbon credit, right? We have carbon credit situation. If people are investing or OEMs are investing into startups, they can get some kind of a credit, and based on that credit, a special provisions can be provided to them, maybe tax rebates or any kind of a thing. So thoughts, of course, there are numerous thoughts, but paucity of time, I think I leave the floor to you, Akram. Sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. I think wonderful points coming in. Dr.
Yes.
Sharma.
See, first to give some acknowledgement to the government.
Yeah.
STPI actually has begin a dedicated focused accelerator program for automotive companies only, automotive startups. Why? Because I had actually, one of the company was incubated in STPI only. So I have actually been very closely working with STPI also. So they are making an earnest attempt to have a hardware laboratory and encouraging the startups. So in fact, I also recommended Vimal now to apply for the STPI fund. So this is something which is there where they give 25 lakh rupees kind of funding. But now coming to the other scheme which the government announced is that they have actually given a mandate that setting up an incubator accelerator can also be considered as part of the CSR initiative. So it is not only the fund which we are talking. So for example, if any company wants to announce an accelerator program, So they can actually have incubation initiative, and of the 2% can be utilized for incubation. So this is what the government has announced it. Now, where the catch two situation comes out is the policies are not really percolated to many company. In fact, many companies don't know what is happening. In fact, there are every day a new scheme is coming up. So, but if you go and ask to the bank guys don't know the scheme. The industry doesn't know the scheme, but government knows the scheme. So it is something, the first policy recommendation which will be there to the government is that they need to bring in that awareness, no, and maybe they need to spend an awareness publicity around any scheme which is launched in a proper way, so that everyone understands the merit, and then more clarity has to come in. Because what happens is, there were funds which were angels were very much enthusiastic in 2016 and all, and they were willing to set up this corporate alternative funds. Suddenly, government announced that there is going to be a tax, upfront tax. It created a lot of confusion, and many angels they actually decided to not get only into an alternative fund. So more clarity on the policy setting of funds, more clarity on the exit of closing a fund if a fund is not able to raise money. So a lot of inputs work needs to be done from the government, and I strongly feel that the industry should also make an industry academic startup policy. And start working closely with not the premier institutes alone, because otherwise all rush to only IIT IIMs. So we have multiple engineering colleges in India and abroad. So
Absolutely. Brilliant. I think a lot of points coming in. I'm really happy that we are talking so intellectual, and I don't know how much would be our viewers equipped to take so much of knowledge and so much of information. But a couple of these points, they are very clear that there are ways out. There are always ways out. It is about how we implement it. And yes, we don't need to talk about IIT IIMs anymore. And industry academia interface is utmost important for this country. So I think Policy Times and US Impact, P Combinator, Autonebula will work together to promote that, to encourage that, and to make sure that this happens in future. Yes, one biggest disadvantage with startups is that big corporations, they have their own government relationship managers or officers, and they day and night do research about what are the policy loopholes or what are the policy new policy that is there in the market that their company can take advantage of. Unfortunately, startups do not have time, neither have resources or money to research about the new policy. Because policy always comes, but unfortunately, startups don't have that time and energy and money and resources to do research and take advantage of it. Because getting government money is a very rigorous process, a lengthy process. It takes a lot of time, money, diplomacy, and resources. Most of the startups do not have. So I think if we can have, so Policy Times would be extremely interested to be that medium where we bring the policies up front, and we also connect with startups so that we might not have big government relation managers, but we have a single manager who can help hundreds of startups in different sectors. I think that is one area we can explore. So thank you so much, experts, for joining us for this wonderful and rich discussion. Viewers, if you like this kind of discussion, do like and subscribe to our page and channel. Believe me, we are committed to development. In our lifetime, we want to see India as a prosperous nation, developed nation. When we want that, we need to think, we need to work, we need to work, we need to talk about development. Forget about all other things, rest can be managed. But let us talk about development and drink about development. Thank you. Keep watching.